I enjoy Travis's story. I've never been so disrespectful as to give my father with a finger, I have to tell you. I'm going to tell a story that includes an image of, and this is a true story, of me standing outside in the winter, totally naked. So if you're easily disturbed, you might want to leave right now. Some years ago, a friend of mine, really my best friend, Gary, asked if I wanted to buy some property with him. And I really liked Gary, and he'd been looking at property, so I said, sure. And together we bought a wonderful piece of property in the mountains, very rural. It was 15 acres. It was a natural bowl. It had a spring, full of briars. It had a nice south-facing house site, and we bought that together. I owned it with him for a couple of years. And then he asked if he could buy me out because he wanted to build a log house on the property. I thought about it, and we're such good friends, I knew I would always be welcome to stay there if he built it, so I sold him my share, and he built this wonderful log house. Now this place, very rural, didn't have any running water, it didn't have any indoor plumbing, but it wasn't without its creature comforts. One of the things that Gary built, he was quite creative, he built a bathhouse. It was a small building, it had windows on 3 sides, and it had a nice clawfoot bathtub in it, and a little wood stove. He put a gas-fired water heater outside, and he would pump water with a gas-powered pump up into the water heater, heat it up with gas, fill up the clawfoot tub, and I have a wonderful memory of being in that hot water, clawfoot tub, window on 3 sides, little wood stove next to it going, watching it snow. It was absolutely magical. And a totally wussy way to spend the winter. It's not what my story is about at all. This is about cold. A few years after that, I went to visit, and to my surprise, Gary had had a pond dug right in the middle of the property, about a 3/4 acre pond. And if you can imagine this, it was just a beautiful triangular pond. It had a dock with some steps going down into the water. And 50 feet away from that, right on the edge of the woods, he had relocated the bathhouse and turned it into a sauna. Have you ever experienced a sauna? Who here has been in a sauna?
Yes.
It's great, isn't it? So you get in the sauna, and this is the way a sauna works really well. You get in a sauna, you get nice and hot, and then you go jump in the pond, and it cools you off. It's great. This is what the sauna was like. It had 2 windows. It's really impractical to have windows in the sauna, but there were views of the pond and of the woods to the side. And this thing had a Finnish sauna stove. Now this is a really neat stove. It had a water tank. The water would be boiling in the air, getting some humidity in the air. And it had a tray on the top for these lava rocks, which would get super hot. You pour water on them, make it even hotter. Now how hot do you get a sauna? Well, we didn't really have much technology there. What we used was a meat thermometer. The good temperature for a sauna is veal. That's 160 degrees. So essentially what you would do is heat yourself up to about 160 degrees, and you would stay in there until you work up a righteous sweat, and then you go jump in the pond. Really nice in the summer. When there's a meteor shower, you can just float on your back and watch the meteors and get back in the sauna, get warmed up, get back in the pond. But if you know anything about saunas, it's that they're really more effective for clearing your pores when it's cold. So we like to do it when it was not quite summer. Now, have you ever jumped into cold water? Do you know what that feels like? It's like, especially if you get heated up, even when you're heated up, when you jump into cold water, every molecule in your body just wants to frantically get out of the water. You claw your way back to the ladder, climb up. It really is very refreshing. I was there several years ago. It was February. And Gary mentioned, February is the only month that nobody has ever swum in the pond. What a challenge. So this is what my story is about. This was one particularly cold February. So we got set up. We started the fire in the sauna because it takes a while to heat up to the veal, 160 degrees. We got some luminaries. We had these mayonnaise jars, plastic mayonnaise jars they have in school cafeterias with candles in them, going 50 feet from the sauna down to the dock so we could see, because we were going to be doing this at night. It was quite cold. So I went out with an axe because there was about 4 inches of ice on the pond. I went out there and cut about an 8-foot circle around the stairs. And it's important to get all the ice out of the hole when you're doing that. My wife Linda can testify to that because the first time I took her there, she jumped in like this, and then the cuts here from little icebergs. You have to be really careful. So you get all the ice out of this 8-foot circle. Then we went in, nice veal temperature, 160 degrees. You stay in there until you're good and sweaty. If the sweat's not dripping off my elbow, it's not time yet. When you're pretty hot, you went down and jumped in and immediately jumped back out. There were about 6 of us doing it, and then 5, and then 3. We've done it about 6 times until I was the last one left. Now this is a very cold, very still night. I said, I am going to do it as long as I can until I'm about ready to pass out. That's when you know you need to get in. It's when you start getting a little bit, you're afraid you're going to fall into the stove. That's the time to get into the water. So here I was, all by myself. Of course, no clothes. What's the point? You're just going to have cold clothes when you come into the sauna. So this is a rural place. So I decided to really heat up the sauna. Went up to 170. Beef, well done. 180, lamb. 190, lamb, well done. That's as high as a meat thermometer goes, by the way. Up to 190 degrees, I was there sweating profusely. I'm going to stay in here. It's going to be great, as long as I can stand it. And then I went outside. Now, we had a thermometer outside. It was 5 degrees outside. And I went and looked, and that pond had frozen over that 8-foot circle. And as I stepped through it, it was like stepping through a pane of glass. I jumped in, and I thought, I'll never get to do something like this again. So I went underneath that 4 inches of ice and looked up at the luminaries on the dock. And I thought, how cool is this? Now, it's really more like this. I got in the water, I went under there, and thought, how cool is this? And I went back out. It was cold. But I got out of that, I got onto the dock. The cool thing about getting superheated in a sauna, you develop this internal heat. And I got out, and as soon as you get out of the water, it's a frantic feeling to get out, but you're comfortable. And I was standing there, still, cold night, 5 degrees, with steam pouring off my body, thinking, this is amazing. I feel totally comfortable. This is wonderful. Then I dried off, took my time, I wasn't cold, put on my clothes, and finished. I highly recommend that you try doing a sauna, jumping into freezing cold water. I just suggest you get to lamb well done before you do.